Roxo Media House.
From the Flying T Club studios at Roxo Media House, this is Frogs Today, featuring the newest members of the Frogs Today family, Parker and Grant from the Purple Theory podcast, two legends of the game, Buddy Iles and Sonny Gibbs, former Frog quarterback, PD Shabay, University of Texas Athletic Director, Chris Del Conte, and we check in with our panel of experts. And now, here's your host, the voice of the TCU Horned Frogs, Brian Estridge.
Football Intensive Friday starts right now here on Frogs Today from the Flying T Club studios. Thanks for joining us. I'm Brian Estridge, and we got a show lined up for you. Hey, it's Texas week. You got to do that when you're number 4 in the country. That latest college football playoff poll comes out. Frogs sitting at number 4, right where they should be, I think. We'll get into that a little bit later on. As you heard from Elle, our studio announcer, telling you early on, we got a big lineup of some great guests coming up. And we're also going to sneak in a little basketball look because it was a big day on Thursday and Friday on the TCU campus. Dr. James Cash was honored with a brand new statue. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But right now, we are excited to welcome the two newest members of the Frogs Today family. If you would, welcome the fellas from the Purple Theory podcast. Parker Fleming joins us, Grant McGalliard as well. Gentlemen, how we doing?
Doing great. Excited to be here. Excited to be a part of Frogs Today, man.
Yeah, good to see your face. All right, here's what I'm going to do because I got to direct traffic on this Zoom. I'm going to call you by name. Let's start with you, Parker. Let's dive right into this. By the way, in case you don't know, these guys take a long, hard look at the numbers, all right? These guys are into the analytics of the game, but they also kind of give you their opinion every once in a while as well when it comes to TCU football on this podcast that just dropped, by the way, 2 days ago. It's outstanding. You need to check it out with us at Frogs Today. You can find it at frogstoday.com as well as all of the podcast outlets where you normally would find it. All right, diving right in, Parker. Let's start. I said the Frogs are number 4 in the country, right where they should be. Based on the numbers, are they?
Well, depends on what number, Brian. But I think that in terms of strength of record, ESPN's kind of metric based on FPI has them saying, hey, the way they've won and who they've beaten, they're 4th overall. In my own opponent adjusted metrics, where I look at your per play efficiency, I have TCU at about 15th. And so a little bit of a discrepancy there. I think they've struggled in the first half, which kind of brings those play-by-play efficiency numbers down. I certainly think it's inarguable that TCU, given their resume being 9-0, is a top 10, top 8 team. I'm reluctant to care too much about the playoff rankings, Brian, because we've been burned before having TCU in that top 4.
Grant, it's funny Parker brought this up, and I think it's a good point to make in that the second halves have been different than the first halves for the Horned Frogs. When you heard the playoff committee 2 weeks ago talking about where the Frogs were in the rankings, they pointed out that a little disappointing in the defense in the second half, as if they were sort of diminishing what had happened in the second halves. These are complete games. They should be watching the whole thing, shouldn't they?
Yes, I completely agree. And you look at a team like Texas, for example, where Texas has been outstanding in the first half and then pretty terrible in the second half, and somehow they keep climbing the rankings. TCU has pretty much been the opposite. Sure, they come out a little bit slow, but you've seen that Joe Gillespie at defensive coordinator, even Garrett Riley, has made some outstanding adjustments in the second half. These are complete games TCU is playing. It doesn't matter what the score is at halftime. It matters what the score is at the end of the game. And 9 games in a row, TCU scored more than its opponent. So, yes, absolutely complete games, and that should not matter for the committee.
Parker, you do a good job. You talked about including the opponent adjustment in there as well, who you've played, how you've done against certain teams. When you take that into consideration, give us some things that we need to look for on Saturday night for the Frogs and the Longhorns as they go head-to-head that you've seen in their history that may give us some sense of what may happen here.
Well, I certainly, looking at how these two teams play, see kind of a mirror image. Both are offensive forward teams. Their offensive efficiency is much better than their defensive efficiency. And they have interesting splits in the passing game on defense. Texas's pass game is 39th in the FBS in defensive efficiency. And their rush game is 39th. Their pass game is 90th in efficiency on defense. TCU's rush game on defense, 59th. Their passing defense is 77th. So there's a lot of opportunity for kind of the overhead deep balls to play a big role in this game on both sides. You've obviously got Xavier Worthy and Quentin Johnston, two of the most productive receivers in the nation, according to yards per route run. The interesting thing to me is Texas runs a lot less than TCU. Texas is 59th in rush rate over expected. That's negative 1.2 percentage points compared to the average. TCU is 83rd. They're 2.2 points more than average there. So we see kind of the imbalance of defensive efficiency, but then we also see a differentiation in style on the offensive side of the ball. Play action is something Texas really loves. They run it about 47% of the time when they pass. That certainly raises their passing efficiency. On offense, Texas is much more successful on average than TCU, who tends to be more explosive. Texas is 11th in success rate compared to 34th in EPA per play. On the other side of the ball, TCU is 41st in success rate, but 8th in EPA per play. So we see Texas a lot more successful moving the chains. TCU is getting that big play strike, that big play touchdown. So really a nice kind of complementary matchup here to watch for.
So you're telling me the score is going to be 32-31? Is that what you're telling me?
I don't want to say take the over, Brian, but I would be inclined to take an over here.
Ooh, okay. I like it. I like it a lot. All right, so Grant, let's dive into the emotion of it, though, because Parker does a good job with all the numbers, and I know you're into that as well. But how do you figure the emotion of this game into it when you're trying to determine, all right, who's going to come out on top?
Yeah, I mean, there's storylines abound. TCU obviously undefeated, fighting for a college football playoff spot. Texas roaring back with Quinn Ewers at the helm, and a night game in Darrell K. Royal Stadium with College Game Day there. Obviously, we can't ignore the storyline that Gary Patterson will be on the other sideline. This is the first time TCU has seen him since he left campus. I think Sonny Dykes has did a pretty good job this year of managing emotions, whether that's the Kansas game where TCU took some punches with the big crowd there at College Game Day, came back and won. We've seen TCU go down, come back and win games. So I think he's got this team playing pretty much one game at a time. You listen to the comments from players in interviews, and they've all kind of adopted that mentality. So there's no doubt that emotion is going to play a factor. I just think that Sonny has proven while he's at TCU that he's been able to make sure his players are able to manage those emotions and not let them affect gameplay.
All right, Parker, I wanted to be noted that Grant was the first one to mention Gary Patterson on today's show.
I tried not to, but you teed me up for it.
Make sure that's noted. All right, real quick, and I want to get into some other stuff. So opinion here from both of you. Do you like TCU's chances on Saturday night? Parker, start with you.
I have TCU at about a 42% chance of winning straight up. I've got this by about a field goal in favor of Texas. Given that it's on the road, that's going to be a lot of the difference there. TCU and Texas are very similar in terms of their efficiency metrics, but you give Texas a slight edge. They've been playing a little bit better recently, and they are at home here. I think this will be a last score wins, though. I really think this is closer to a 50-50 game than a 58-42 game like my numbers have it.
All right, Grant, you heard Parker. What about you, man? What do you think about Saturday night?
I think it's also a 50-50 game. I think one thing that might give TCU the edge is that Texas has been pretty turnover prone. Quinn Ewers has thrown 5 interceptions. He's also fumbled the ball 3 times. TCU's defense has proven the ability to force a turnover when needed. I know Parker would say that is a luck stat. I don't believe in that. I think it is sort of a pretty good ability for a defense to have. So I do think this might be a situation where Texas has the ball late and is driving, but Bud Clark or Mark Perry or Abe Kamara pulls off a big play and TCU manages to fend off Texas.
All right, man. I'm looking forward to what happens on Saturday night. Looking forward to more from you guys, the Purple Theory podcast. By the way, Parker, I got to know, have you heard the new Tyler Childers album? What do you think?
Oh my gosh, this is as much a Grant question as it is me. We love it. We had been talking about it coming out. We had it scheduled on our calendars for months, and we're just so excited. That guy is not just a great singer, not just a country music artist, like a legitimately amazing musician.
He's a poet, man. That's what I'm telling all these people in the studio, and nobody's buying it but me. So I'm looking forward to having you guys in studio with us so we can jam to some Tyler Childers. All right?
Sounds good to me. Listen, I'll open up every podcast with "Way of the Triune God" Hallelujah version.
I'm with you, brother. Then you got me. I'm hooked. All right, there they go. It is the Purple Theory podcast. You can catch it on our website, frogstoday.com. You can also find it everywhere that podcasts are. We're excited about having them in the family. When we continue here on Frogs Today on the Football Intensive Friday, 1961 was the year. Texas was number 1. The Frogs beat them. We'll tell you how when we continue after this timeout.
Dave's Hot Chicken is a cult favorite and now has 2 locations in Fort Worth, Bryant Irvin Road on I-20 and Berry Street at TCU, both owned and operated by Horned Frogs. Mention the Frogs Today show and get 10% off anytime and order online at daveshotchicken.com.
The Flying T Club provides the everyday TCU fan and alum the ability to specifically support TCU student athletes. Flying T Club offers 3 levels of memberships. The Flying T Club is a nonprofit organization supporting the brand development of TCU student athletes through a series of unique event-based networking opportunities, which are exclusive to our members. These events provide a great social engagement tool for our members and student athletes alike. Follow them on Instagram at Flying T Club or online at flyingtclub.com.
Frogs Today continues here on the Football Intensive Friday. Welcome back into the Flying T Club studios. Man, it is a great chance to talk about former TCU Texas matchups, and there's one that comes to mind for everyone. 1961, Texas was number 1 in the country. The Frogs go to Austin, and this gentleman to my left caught the touchdown pass that won it. Buddy Iles, how are you, man?
Doing great.
Good to see you.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. Now, joining us today, buddy, is the fellow who threw it to you.
Yes.
Remember that name?
Yes.
One Sonny Gibbs is on the phone with us. Sonny, how are you?
I'm doing good. We appreciate y'all getting us on the phone. I want to tell you the true story, how we beat them.
I want to hear the true story on how you beat him. How did that happen?
Well, Darryl Raw had a super great assistant coaching team. Jim Pittman being one that recruited me hot and heavy when I was in Graham, and then he later became TCU's head coach, but unfortunately he died out on the field. But they had a great recruiting class. They had more speed than a man on a runaway train. And what actually happened that day, Coach White, our offensive line coach, said, okay, guys, we're kind of noted for our fullbacks. That's the reason we run a kind of a brown offensive formation, which was the fullback behind the quarterback. And then you ran your slips and your slides and your off-tackle plays with that. And what was happening, when we'd get in this brown formation, Texas would slant to the weak side of our formation, cutting off any plays. And Coach White picked us up. So what we did, we'd get into the brown formation, Royal and his group thinking we're going to run off tackle or run a belly or throw a play-action pass, and they would slant towards the weak side of our formation. Well, we had another guy by the name of Tommy Joe Crutcher that was a heck of a fullback and linebacker, All-American. He would take a couple steps towards the slant, and then he would cut back behind the formation. And Royal and his group never did pick that up.
Yeah, they were number 1 in the country, buddy. Do you remember heading into that ball game? Did you like your chances, buddy, going into that one?
Well, we're kind of like this year's TCU team.
Yeah.
We didn't even understand what that meant.
Right.
We during that year, we had upset Kansas. We tied Ohio State, and they were number 1. Going in to play Texas, we had beaten them 3 straight years. It wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
Even though we were underdogs by 30 points.
Right.
But one of the things, what Sonny's been kind of bringing it together pretty good, but the play that we ran to score the touchdown was Darryl Royal's play.
Oh, really?
To the T.
Really?
And so we pulled that out right before half, and Sonny nearly overthrew me. I was running as fast as I could, and but that's what it was. It was and that's what and we didn't think we were going to lose.
Yeah.
They got inside our 15-yard line 3 times.
Yeah, 3 times, right.
And we stopped them.
Yeah, Frogs ended up winning 6-0. Here's a picture from Sports Illustrated of that reception. That's Buddy Iles making the catch that Sonny Gibbs threw out there, obviously. Here's the cover of it, as you can see. They have Jimmy Saxton of Texas on the cover.
Right.
What they don't tell you at the very beginning is that the Frogs beat them that day, you know. So do you remember the play, Sonny? Do you remember the play call?
Yes, sir. It was a wing tee to the left, and it was a reverse handoff. I got the ball, turned around, pitched to the right, running back. He took 2 steps, gave it back to me. Iles was crawling down the field. And, you know, the thing about it was, old Royal said, I knew that everybody in the stadium knew they was going to throw that pass. I said, well, if everybody knew it, they're not paying you enough money then. You didn't know it. But anyway, he called us cockroaches.
That's right. That's when that phrase
that's
came out, right?
Right.
It really PO'd a bunch of people, including myself, that it wasn't what we won, is what we fill in as spoil.
Yeah.
I said, well, you need to put better stuff over the field if we're spoiling your Darrell Raw field.
Frogs got the win. Buddy, do you remember what that locker room was like afterward? Was it any different?
Yes, very much so. And
Yeah.
I had several friends on that Texas team. You know, kind of set the picture of this thing. Sonny Gibbs was 6'7".
Right.
And he was the biggest quarterback in the nation.
Yeah.
And we basically were a run team, except for about 15 times a game we would throw a pass. But he was good for 3 or 4 yards every time he put under center and snuck the ball. But yeah, we had a lot of excitement. I went over and to the Texas
Sideline.
Yeah. Talked to a lot of people, including Darrell Raw.
Yeah. Yeah. It ended up being a great day. There was a great sports writer who wrote about Sonny Gibbs, who says Sonny Gibbs doesn't throw the football; he just hands it off way downfield.
That's pretty much it.
Sonny, you remember that story they wrote about you?
I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, had to be a lot of fun though back then, was it?
Great.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
It was. We had a good time, and we had a bunch of good boys. That team that beat Texas, they were all, I guess, greenies and yellow shirts the year before, huh, buddy?
Yes.
Bunch of young players on that team.
Oh,
right?
yeah, we sure did.
Yeah.
And a lot of our backups. And our basic starting team, though, was pretty much seniors.
Yeah.
And Bob Bahunko played center, Bill Phillips, right guard, Donnie Smith played right tackle.
Yeah.
I can't think of the others.
That's-
I can't think of anymore.
Yeah, that's some fun days. Though.
Yeah.
You know, I was talking to Petey Shabay earlier, who came after you, Sonny,
Right.
and came
Oh,
after
yeah.
you, buddy. And Petey was telling me that what he noticed when he would come from Graham, which is where Sonny's from,
Right.
when he would come to TCU games as a kid, he said the captains, you guys would walk down the ramp before the team, and the place would give Sonny Gibbs a standing ovation just for walking out on the field because
Yeah.
he was so big.
Pretty much it.
Yeah. That's pretty amazing, Sonny.
Well, I tell you, I think we had a super great guy for coach.
Coach Martin, right? You were playing
He
for Abe
took good
Martin.
care of us, Bud, didn't he?
Yeah.
He sure did. And he never said an unkind word to me.
Yeah.
The only time I can remember, we were running offense, goal line offense upstairs, and I missed a block, and he came over and he said, "Buddy, we're going to run that play again, and they know we're coming. And if you miss that block, go back down the field to New London, get your stuff on, and go back to New London.
Go back home, huh?
Yeah.
He's ready for you to go back home.
That's the meanest thing I've ever had spoken to me.
Hey, fellas, I'm curious about this. You were a great. You guys were a great combination.
Me one time, and I had a guy to call me and said, "Hey, have you got any tickets?" I said, "Yeah, but we can't talk about them." And he said, "Well, I need 40 tickets." And this guy that needed 40 tickets was a big gambler there at Fort Worth. So I said, "I can get you 40 tickets." And I said, "What do you want me to do with them?" He said, "We'll meet you at your favorite watering hole," which was, remember the old 19th hole, buddy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, I got Lily, old Bob Lilly, and Harry Moreland. We rounded up our tickets, went down there. This guy's going to pay us, I think it was about $30 or $40 a ticket. We went down there and sat around, drank some Cokes, played some shuffleboard. Nobody showed up. Next morning, I get this phone call from Coach Martin and said, "Sonny Gibbs, this is Coach Martin. Get down here and bring Bob Lilly and Harry Moreland with you." I said, "Okay." So I rounded up Lilly and Moreland. We're going down there, and Lilly said, "Okay, quarterback, you got us into this. You do all the talking." I said, "Okay." So we get down there, and Coach Martin's all leaned back in that old chair. Remember that old hat he wore all the time, Bud?
Yep.
And I said, "Good morning, Coach." He said, "Y'all sit down. You've been acting like Hanyaks." Well, that was a good name for, you just went out and blew your socks off that night.
Right.
And I said, "No, sir, this is what happened." And I told him the story. He said, "Okay, Moreland," he said, "you're on the second team, the red team. I'm going to demote you to the blue team." He said, "Gibbs, you're on the first team. You're going to the second team." I said, "Okay." He said, "Bob Lilly, you're the All-American. You stay right where you are."
Imagine that. Hey, I want to close with this, Sonny. You and Buddy obviously are part of TCU lore. That catch is part of TCU lore. Everyone talks about it. I'm fortunate that we got you two together today. I'm curious. So, how long has it been since you guys have talked?
Well,
it's been about 3 years, hasn't it, Bud?
Yeah, we were together with Bob Lilly. They were honoring Bob, and we were being interviewed up at the Coliseum.
Yep.
Yeah.
You remember that? And
Oh, yeah.
that was the last time.
Yeah.
But it took me a week to find you this week. I ended up calling my other roommate, Stan Wilkinson.
Yeah.
His wife's sister married Sonny's wife's wife.
Well,
No,
yeah, Sonny's
something
wife's
like,
brother.
Yeah, or something like that.
Yes, exactly. Somehow they're intertwined, and you found it.
Yeah.
Sonny Gibbs, thank you very much for hopping on the phone with us today. We sure do appreciate you joining us.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Go Frogs.
There we go. All right, there goes Sonny
See you,
Gibbs.
Sonny.
Buddy, let's get together more often, man.
I'm ready.
All right, that's fun.
Okay.
There he goes, Sonny Gibbs, the Frog quarterback back in '61 when the Frogs were able to knock off #1 Texas. Buddy, I want to talk about one other thing real quick because you've been a great ambassador for TCU athletics over the years. When you were a player here, did you know that this was going to be a lifelong journey with TCU?
Not at all. You know, coming to Fort Worth, being raised in East Texas, my dad was in the oil field. I was in awe my entire career. We won the conference in '58 in football, basketball, and golf.
Yeah.
We We won every year, and then we were expected to win. We thought we were going to win, and it was just such a great experience. But I need to say one thing. I wanted to go to Texas, and one of the coaches came down to the house in New London, Texas, and had lunch, had supper with my dad and mother. I was on a date with Joanne, my wife, and I think that sewed it up.
Really?
He had lunch with my parents,
Yeah.
but he was in the same class with my mother at Poly.
Okay.
1932. So
And he probably said, "I'll take care of him."
probably.
Yeah. And it did.
And there was some money that changed hands.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. I love it. Hey, I would be remiss if I didn't show this. Here's Buddy Iles with Bob Lilly. It's a great shot there. I want to show that one. And then also, in case you're wondering, here's Buddy and Sonny together. I don't know if you can see this. Yeah, this is Buddy and Sonny together.
Right.
So thanks for bringing these by. I do appreciate it. Buddy Iles, good to see you, man. Thank you. You like the Frogs' chances on Saturday night?
I do.
Good.
This team does not know that they're behind.
Yeah.
They don't know that they're going to lose.
Yeah.
I was telling some of the guys here, after rooting for the Frogs since 1955, this is the most fun year I've ever had in football.
It is.
Great.
It is. And I think it's because it's a fun team. They're good people.
Right.
Coaches are great. The atmosphere has been great. It's been nothing more you could ask for right now.
That's correct.
Just got to keep winning.
That's right.
That's right. Buddy Iles, thank you very much for coming by.
bet.
It's been an honor and a pleasure.
Thank you.
From one legend to another, P.D. Shabay is going to join us next when Frogs Today continues in a moment.
The Flying T Club provides the everyday TCU fan and alum the ability to specifically support TCU student athletes. Flying T Club offers 3 levels of memberships. The Flying T Club is a nonprofit organization supporting the brand development of TCU student athletes through a series of unique event-based networking opportunities, which are exclusive to our members. These events provide a great social engagement tool for our members and student athletes alike. Follow them on Instagram at Flying T Club or online at flyingtclub.com. For exclusive interviews and content on TCU recruits, subscribe now at frogstoday.com. Any sport, anytime. It's your source for all things TCU. Only on frogstoday.com.
Frogs Today rolls on from the Flying T Club studios right now. A little history lesson, folks, because this guy who joins me right now, one of the greats of all time here at TCU, P.D. Shabay. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing wonderful.
Good to see you.
I'm really doing wonderful. The 9-0.
That's right. It's hard not to be good at 9-0, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. All right, Frogs head off to Austin on Saturday night, obviously, to take on the Longhorns. Number 4 in the country's TCU, 18 in the country's Texas. And I thought we'd kind of reminisce about some of the big games in the history. And we just had Buddy Iles on talking about the 61 game. But you were a part of 2 big ones in the 60s, starting in 1965, right?
That started in 1965. We went down to Austin, again, big underdogs, and came away with a win.
Yeah, it was one of those games, too, where you got to relive the cockroaches, the story that Buddy was telling us about Darryl Roy and the fact that he called the Frogs the cockroaches. That was a moniker you embraced, right?
Oh, that was a battle cry.
Yeah.
The cockroaches are back. When we heard that the first time, Darryl Roy basically said, the cockroaches TCU are like cockroaches. They just mess up things.
Yeah.
And so we had it at the TCU pep rally. It was literally a battle cry for us.
Well, and that game in 65, that's in November of 65. Lead us into what's going on that year, because you were a youngster on that roster, and Kent Nix was there as well, right, at quarterback?
Right. Kent Nix was a senior. I was a sophomore. We had Coach Abe Martin then.
Yeah.
Coach Martin did it by feel more than nearly anything else as far as who was playing quarterback. It was Kent started the first game at Nebraska. We played up in Nebraska. I came in at the end of that game, and then when Kent started Florida State, I came in at the end of that game. Then I started at Arkansas. It just went like that the whole year.
Yeah.
We alternated back and forth, and we both tried to support each other. Kent's a great guy and a real good quarterback.
Yeah, he was a great quarterback. Had a good NFL career.
Oh, he had a great arm. You know, Kent was a very good passer.
Yeah.
And I was more known for my running at that time. That's still when you're in a pretty tight formation.
Right.
You're not in the type of spread that you had today. So my strengths were accurate passing and blocking, and that got me in the game.
So, Petey, going into that game, were you guys heavy underdogs going into that game in 65?
Yes. Every time we went to Texas, we were heavy underdogs.
Heavy underdogs. So that one ends up being I was looking through the numbers here. It ends up being a 25-10 win. You guys threw it for 145 yards that day. So even in that tight formation, you were throwing it around a little bit.
Yeah, they're throwing it around. I had two things happen in that game that I don't know if it happened to very many people. One, Coach Martin sent me into the game to run a play to go into the game for Kent.
Right.
I got to the huddle late, and we were going to get a penalty, so I just ran off on the other side. So I watched the next play next to Darryl Royal.
You're on the Texas bench.
On the Texas bench.
Hey, didn't say you had to go to one side or the other, right? As long as you're off the field.
And so then I came in from off the field, got on the field, ran a sweep to the left, turned up, saw a guy named Tommy Nobis, thought I'd take him on. He decleated me. The hardest I've ever been hit my whole life.
I bet so.
So I remember those two things. I remember a lot from that Texas game.
Kenny Post had a big day. He had a couple of touchdowns running back.
He had two touchdowns. Kenny was also a sophomore.
Yeah.
And another sophomore at that time that had a touchdown pass was Steve Landon.
Oh, wow.
Steve Landon was a halfback.
Yeah.
And we ran
little toss and
a pass. And the real key to that game was Bruce Alford. I don't know if you've seen the stats on the game, but Bruce had 4 field goals in that game.
Right.
And he was an excellent kicker, but he picked up 4 field goals in that game.
Yeah, one of them was a 41-yarder too. So yeah, I saw that. And then in '67, you go back down there, and again, underdogs. Yep. Going into this one, and they jump out on you. It was 10-0 before, early on in that game. Well, really, I guess it was 3-0 at halftime, right? Yeah. And then they got a score in the third quarter, and there were a lot of folks thinking, "Now this might be over with."
Well, the score they got in the third quarter, nearly out of the chute, was a 96-yard run by Chris Gilbert.
Right.
And that's a killer.
Yes.
Your defense is playing really, really well.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're down 10-0, and then I think we got a touch, and then missed the extra point.
Right, and that was Kenny Post again.
Yeah, Kenny Post again.
Yeah.
And then we had some good things happen to us. Right at the beginning of the fourth quarter, we're down 17-6, and I think it's over.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would really be happy if things were going our way, but they weren't. 17-6 in Austin's hard to overcome. And then Bubba Thornton takes a punt, 78 yards for a touch.
Yeah.
We went for 2. That made it. We went for 2, and I threw a pass to Bill Ferguson for the extra point. And then it was us.
Yeah, because at that point it's 17-14. And then I think you get another touchdown from Kenny Post late. You got a field goal.
Got a field goal in
there as well. And you won 24-17.
You won 24-17. The key to the last touchdown drive was a kid named Cubby Hudler. They had Bill Bradley. I don't remember. Remember Super Bill?
Yes.
And he tried a quick kick. Cubby chased it down and nearly ran the thing back.
Really?
He came back, broke tackles, and then we drove the ball in, and Kenny took it in for the final score, and we went away with a 24-17 win.
Wow. Think about that. Do you remember the reaction there in Austin after that game?
No, I don't remember their reaction. I remember our reaction, and we had some really talented people on that team. We had Ross Montgomery, who was one of the best halfbacks TCU ever had. A big 6'3", 220-pound running back. He was good. Kenny was really, really good at fullback and blocking that he did. A kid named Steve Jamail from Lamarck, Texas, was our tight end. So we had some but one of the keys to that game, if you looked at the stats, and they're nearly unbelievable when you look at them, look how many first downs that Texas had.
I saw that. Was it 4?
4 first
How did
downs.
that happen?
A defense that was led by a linebacker named Steve Gunn from Stephenville. They had 4 first downs.
That's amazing.
And the time possession always was in our favor.
Yeah.
So we got that happened, but it was one of the best dressing room scenes I think I've ever been in.
I can imagine. The 60s were a decent decade for the Horned Frogs against Texas.
Yes.
You know, we talked about the 61, 65, 67. We were talking earlier about Sonny Gibbs. He's from your hometown. You guys are from the same hometown of Graham.
Same hometown.
Did you watch him growing up?
I watched Sonny and play football, and he was one of my heroes, along with several others. Graham had a whole bevy of really great athletes that came through Graham during that period of time. In the mid 50s, my first one was a guy by the name of Mike Dottle. Mm-hmm. He was a linebacker down at the University of Texas, played for the Dallas Cowboys. Mm-hmm. He walked by my house every morning, and I'd sit there and wait for Mike to come by, and he wore 33. So when I started playing football, I wanted Mike's number. Yeah. And I wore 33. When TC recruited me, I asked Coach Martin, I said, will you let me wear 33? And he said, oh, yeah, when they're recruiting you, they say anything.
Sure, right.
But he did follow through and let me wear 33, and I was probably the only quarterback in the nation wearing 33 at the time.
I love it, though. It worked.
It all was because of Mike and my admiration for him. And then Sonny came right after Mike Dottle. He did what he did at TCU, and he was just a great athlete. Very, very good athlete. And, of course, the 61 team was the one that beat them in 61, 6-0. That was Sonny throwing to Buddy Iles. Right. And that created the cockroach story. Yep. And where, Coach Royal said that TCU was just like a bunch of cockroaches. Yep. He said they'd fall into things and mess it up.
Mess it up, that's right.
So it was like I said, it was our battle cry after that.
It was a lot of fun, that's for sure, and it was a great decade. And you've been a terrific ambassador for TCU over the years, both on the field as a player, later on in life, highly successful at Bell Helicopter. It's always good to see you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming by here. I really appreciate it. The great P.D. Shabay joining us here in the Flying T Club studios. Up next, let's go down to Austin. He used to work at TCU. Now he runs things for UT. Of course, we're talking about Chris Del Conte, the athletic director. He'll join us next with his thoughts on this matchup after this timeout.
Texas-based Happy Water offers the best-tasting, sugar-free kids drink ever made. Happy Water comes in 4 delicious flavors that you can find at local retailers and on Amazon. Each pouch contains 0 grams of sugar, 0 calories, and 0% juice. Head to happydrinks.com for more information and to purchase Happy Water. That's HAPI drinks.com. Live happy, be happy, drink happy.
For exclusive interviews and content on TCU recruits, subscribe now at frogstoday.com. Any sport, anytime. It's your source for all things TCU. Only on frogstoday.com.
Welcome back into Frogs Today here in the Flying T Club studios. We continue to preview the Frogs and the Longhorns coming up on Saturday night from Austin, of course. We're getting ready for that one tomorrow. It's our football intensive Friday edition, and we're joined now by the athletic director at the University of Texas, kind enough to carve out some time for us. Of course, he spent some time here in Fort Worth. Chris Del Conte, good to see you. Thanks for the time today.
Hi, Brian. It's so good to see you. Don't get confused by the bottles of booze behind me. I drink those heavily when needed.
I know the feeling, man.
I'm just joking. Those are gifts I can never drink, but they're great.
Yes, exactly. They're pretty bottles, if nothing else, right? Hey, this thing on Saturday night, let's talk about it, man. You've got a live concert. You got you've got the eyes of the nation on this matchup. We've got game day there. This is what college football and the pageantry of it's all about, isn't it?
Oh, it's going to be fantastic. I need to have a game day here, have a number 4 ranked team in the country in TCU coming down, all the storylines around that game. It's just fantastic for college football. It's fantastic for the state. It's going to be a great night in Austin, Texas.
Your team's starting to play a lot better too, man. Putting it together, a lot of talent there. Give me some sense. Are you starting to see fans sort of rally behind this group now?
You know, it's interesting. It's a super, super young team, Brian. You know, our average age of our team is 19.2. We played against Kansas State last week, and they're 23.6 years old on age. So when you start to think about it, it's like TCU back in the day playing BYU. You know, TCU is a really old team. You have a lot of juniors and seniors. That team is old, has a chance to be great. Got a phenomenal quarterback. You got Sonny, all the storylines around the transition, what is taking place. It's just fantastic, you know, and I'm happy for everybody. I'm happy for us in terms of the recruiting the young kids to get a chance to play for us. I'm happy for what is taking place in college football. It should be a good weekend.
Yeah, it's good for the Big 12, too, as a matter of fact, to see the eyes of the nation on it like this. You know, we talked to Sonny about this just the other week. He was going up against Rhett Lashley, who was a former assistant, former at SMU. And the way college athletics is today, it is so fraternal, it's hard not to go up against friends, and that's never fun, is it?
What was crazy is, remember, I used to work with Sonny's brother at Arizona, Rick. Right. And then when Sonny came to Arizona, I was at Rice and TCU. And when Sonny was going to get ready to leave Arizona to go to from Louisiana to go to get two offers, Cal and Purdue. We met in New York City. I said, "Hey, don't take Cal. You're better suited for Purdue." I thought he was more like Joe Tiller, who I used to work for back at Washington State. He decides to go to Cal when that job did not go as well as he liked it. He was coming for a new opportunity. I said, "Gary, we got to bring in Sonny as an analyst." Gary allowed that to happen. He was there for a year, then goes to SMU. So there's so many familiar stories that we've been together for so long that Kate just called me right now and busted my chops for putting her up so high in the stadium that she needs the Hubble telescope to see the field. I'm like, "Kate, why are you busting me right now?" This is get through the weekend. We'll talk on Sunday.
That's right. We'll visit after the game. Speaking of Gary, you added Coach Patterson to the football staff there as an analyst or a special assistant to the head coach. That transition seems to have worked out well too.
Well, you know, it's interesting. That was really a funny situation when Jeremiah and TCU decided to make a change, and that's always hard for everybody. And you know, I have great love for what the TCU is and the program they have, and at the same time with Gary, and that happened. We had a long chat, and I said, "Gary's going to be a conversation with you and Steve." And he and Steve met. It was funny. Steve called me and goes, "Do you think he'll come?" I said, "Steve, that's a conversation between you and Gary," because I wanted to make sure that was a conversation. They took almost 2 months to figure out this is something they wanted to do, and I'm happy for him just to kind of get out of Fort Worth, get a chance to decompress. He's a damn good coach. He's a great human being, and you know, change is hard. And I love both him. I love Sonny. I've known Sonny longer than I've known Gary, but I had deep, intimate relationships with Gary when I was in a lot. We went through a lot of battles when I was with him at TCU. So for him, a chance to come down here, decompress, and just re-energize his body. It's great to watch him and see him. But he, you know, those student athletes there at TCU recruited all of them, a lot of them, and those are, you know, this is a big game for him emotionally. Just the fact that. He invested so much at TCU, and you look at the stadium behind you there, Brian. His DNA is all over that stadium. And, you know, there's a statue up for them, and at some point in time, he'll be welcomed back home, and he'll feel great about what he did there.
You know, it is interesting though how change can be good for everyone, and we always look at change as a negative, and we shouldn't, because people advance, programs advance, people get better, and you know, as a parent, sometimes we're worried about moving kids when they're too young, but that actually can end up working out for a positive. And I think this is an example of that, where change has been good for everyone.
Well, I think that sometimes you just don't see it, right? And you're just kind of working through it. You're working every day, and I can just see that the health of any individual at some point in time just got to take a step back.
Yeah.
And I just looked at what transpired, and I get it for everybody. I've been there myself. We've had changes we've needed to make, and it's like leaving the opportunity to be from TCU to go to Texas. In my mind, I had done everything I possibly could do, and Eric Hyman extension is one of my mentors in a crazy way. And Eric was always like, "Look, hey, you're going to have to look at these jobs in such a segment." And I love everything about TCU, but the chance to come to the University of Texas and see if we could revive and move this program in the right direction. The moves that we've made the last 4 or 5 years, I'm really proud of. The fact that we've won Directors Cup 2 back-to-back years is the best athletic program in the country. Considering where they were 10 years ago, Brian, it's pretty awesome. But, you know, football's making progress, and I like where we're headed. And getting a chance to go to a new conference and all those things are great for Texas. At the same time, what we built at TCU with Gary and everyone around him, Chancellor Boschini, and that leadership of that board and what Jeremiah's doing is so awesome that I'm happy for them as well.
Yeah, it's a fun time, and I'm looking forward to coming down for basketball, too, seeing that brand-new arena. I hear rave reviews. Craig Wade was on campus just this week, and he was telling me all about it. He said, I fault Del Conte got you a good seat, man. You're going to be on courtside. You're going to be okay, but it is a great arena. I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, it's fantastic. And for us to do that, boy, talk about basketball. Jamie Dixon has a heck of a team.
Yes, he does.
He and I were together back at UC Santa Barbara, and when we were, it's so funny to watch when he's now there, and we text back and forth, and we call, and we'll say, hey, how's it going? He had a tough little scare the other night. He was down by 16 at half, and I said, hey, Jamie, what's going on? But, they came back, and they roared back and did a great job, and you're going to love the Moody. I had Ricky Chicken came down the other day for a concert, and he said, hey, of course, Ricky, it's all about Fort Worth. This sure as hell isn't the arena that we have down there at the Stockyards. It's fucking best. I'm like, can we just have something, Ricky, without busting my balls?
I love it. I love it. Hey, looking forward to tomorrow night. It's going to be a great atmosphere, Chris. I know it's going to be good to see old faces, but I think we're in for a great football game as we showcase the Big 12 on Saturday night to the national audience.
Oh, for sure. I'm excited for that. Excited for all participants. It'll be great.
Chris, thanks for the time. Chris Del Conte, the athletic director at Texas. Appreciate the time here, my man. Thanks for joining us. When we come back, our roundtable of experts starts to break down this game even further as we get ready for TCU in Texas tomorrow night after this timeout on Frogs Today.
Say hello to the water of tomorrow. Richard's Rainwater. Richard's Rainwater is 100% rain, refreshing, renewable, and the only ingredient we use in our water. Why rain? Because everyone deserves access to clean water, and rain is a 100% renewable resource available everywhere. Drink the rain. Save the planet. Shop now at richardsrainwater.com.
Dave's Hot Chicken is a cult favorite and now has 2 locations in Fort Worth, Bryant Irvin Road on I-20 and Berry Street at TCU. Both owned and operated by Horned Frogs. Mention the Frogs Today show and get 10% off anytime and order online at daveshotchicken.com.
Welcome back into Frogs Today, folks. It is time for our panel of experts. We've reduced it down this week. We thought Plunkett didn't bring much last week, so we took it down to 2. We got Coach David Bowden. We got Jeff Wilson from FrogsToday.com ready to talk about this matchup as the Horned Frogs get set now for the Texas Longhorns, happening at 6:30 on Saturday night. Remember the rule of the game. Can't talk unless you have the football. Once you have the football, you got to be exact in your thoughts, all right? Just no pressure there, Coach David Bowden. Let's start with you. Let's go fast versus slow, tortoise versus hare, because you got Texas coming out of the block quickly on offense. TCU's been a little slow starting this year, been a second-half team. What gives here in this game?
They do. I think, TCU has shown the ability to start fast. The past couple of weeks, though, it has not been the case. Other than Darius Davis' touchdown last week, they really were a little bit sluggish. But I think Coach Sonny Dykes has addressed that with his team, has been intentional in talking about just blocking out all the noise. For a while, they were ignoring it, but he realized they just can't ignore it anymore, and they're going to have to just block it out and play with different expectations at this point in the season. For Texas, they come out firing, especially on offense, all kinds of scheme early, trying to do a bunch of different things that this TCU defense would not have seen, especially Shadrack Banks, who's filling in for D. Winters this week, and we'll see him. That's going to be a challenge. He's a tremendous athlete, tons of speed, size, instincts, all those things, but still has to grow and needs the reps behind him, so that'll be something to watch in the first half. If TCU can just hang in there in the first half and have it be a close ball game, I think in the second half they can once again have a comeback victory. They just can't let it get out of hand in that first half.
Especially at that stadium in front of that crowd. Everybody's watching this one. There'll be 100,000 folks there, obviously, the eyes of the nation on it. I'm curious if one guy's going to be there because I think he plays a key role in this TCU offense, and that, of course, is Quentin Johnston, the wide receiver. He's awfully important, Coach.
Do you see those hands?
I did. I saw that. That was good.
So, from what we've heard, he thinks he's going to play. He told I think David Bowden that the other day. He was in a boot. I got a text from some guy who said that a girl in a class said that Quentin was wearing a boot but said he was going to play. So let's say he plays. How much is he going to play? I think it's important that he at least gets on the field somewhat. Doesn't have to be a full load of snaps, and it'd be terrific if it was, but just Quentin Johnson in certain situations, limiting his snaps, but getting him in at the right time could be huge for this offense, because you saw no offense to Blair Cartwright, but he's not Quentin Johnson. And you saw the offense kind of stall down against Texas Tech without Quentin. So just the attention, just the presence might be all TCU needs really to get that thing going.
All right, good deal. Just the fact that he is, and by the way, you could be wearing that boot as a total precautionary measure just to protect and give yourself a few more days to heal. There's no question about it. All right, on both sides of the ball, we're going to see two terrific running backs. Kendre Miller for the Frogs, Bijan Robinson for Texas. Both of them are physical. Who has a better game Saturday?
Yeah, well, I think that's, the other thing that Texas brings into play. You have those two running backs, and they also have Roschon Johnson, a guy who was really a heralded quarterback coming out of high school. As a freshman, he got moved to running back just through a flurry of injuries in that Texas Longhorn running back room, and just stayed. And so now he's up there in the top echelon of backs, which is a great group here in the Big 12. But I think Kendre Miller is going to have a big game. I think this is a defense that they're going to have to turn some things out, keep the game tight, and by doing that, can run the ball, run the clock a little bit. Again, especially back in that first half. So I looked at Kendre. Once again, all of a sudden you'll look to the stat sheet. He's going to have 170 yards, and you're not going to see. Have no idea how it happened, right? It just tends to have those quiet, grind it out, have a couple big gains, but it's just going to be consistent for Kendre. So I think again. The big names are over at Texas, but I think Kendrick's going to have the day and be the guy to look at.
Okay, I want it on record here. Stay right here. I want it on record that we have not mentioned Gary Patterson since the first 5 minutes of the show when Grant McGalliard was on, right?
That's right.
Yeah, but one guy wants to talk about Gary Patterson, and you know who that is. The guy who's covered him before all those years, Jeff Wilson. What dynamic do we get here with Gary Patterson on the Texas sideline?
Yeah, I'm kind of going to go a different way here. I don't think it's a big factor. I really don't. I think that kind of what the players said, Trey Tomlinson said it this week. Gary Patterson is familiar with the Frogs of and last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Yeah, he recruited them. He might know their tendencies. He might know, what kind of flowers their mom likes or something like that. But I don't know that he can do anything that's going to exploit them. Remember, this SMU offense that Sonny Dykes brought with him to TCU, along with Garrett Riley, scored 83 points combined in the last two games against TCU. Gary Patterson had 2 years to figure SMU out, and he didn't do it. So I don't know necessarily that this advanced work that he's supposedly doing or that Texas people think he's doing is going to be a huge factor. They're not going to completely tear up their defense that they run. They might add some wrinkles, but I don't think that it's going to be a huge factor. Now, I could be totally wrong. It could be that after the game, if Texas wins, that Gary Patterson is giving a parade down down I-35. I don't know, but I just don't think that it's going to be a big factor.
Yeah, I don't think it's a big factor with the current players at TCU. Just in listening to him talk, I don't think it seems to matter to him. All right, let's get to the predictions here. I know you're an analytics guy. I know you break down the numbers. A lot of numbers leaning Texas's way in this one, Coach. What do you think in this one?
They are. Well, I think the Texas defense is good. I think Pete Kwiatkowski, the defensive coordinator, while he may not know what kind of flowers their mom likes, as apparently like Gary Patterson does, he's still going to run the show and run the defense and understands this offense. I think that'll slow them down early. This one's going to be a tighter ball game than TCU has really seen all year. They tend to pull away late. I think, again, they will hang in the first half. They'll go into halftime once again down in this game. I think they'll keep it tight and win a real close one at the end, 31-28 TCU.
31-28. All right. What about you, Jeff Wilson? What do you think in this one?
It's a tough one, but we did season predictions before the first game at Colorado, and I picked TCU to win this game. A lot of it is just because of the history recently. TCU has not had its way, but has been comfortable and has beaten Texas several times since joining the Big 12. I think that TCU can win a close game. I think that if they rattle Quinn Ewers a little bit, if, like Coach Bowden said, they stay close enough in the first half, if they're able to match score for score, then it's a different game come the second half. The offensive line has been very good for TCU at wearing down opponents. Kendre Miller's a battering ram. And I think Max Duggan's run game is going to have to be a big part of this TCU offense this week. But I'm going to go TCU 34-31.
Okay. All right. Real close. 31-28, 34-31. All right. I don't track these things. Coach Bowden does. What's the over-under?
I don't know.
Okay. See, he's good.
Yeah, it's great.
It's a lot.
It's in the 60s.
I think it's in the upper 60s at least. We had Parker Fleming on earlier. He's our latest edition of the Frogs Today family. Of course, he's with the Purple Theory podcast. He told me then, bet the over. He also thought it would be a last-second, last possession field goal that this one will come down to. All right? So I'm going to say it's a little bit more than you guys. I'm going to keep it tight like that, but I'm going to say that the Horned Frogs win 48-47.
Wow.
How about that one? And then we'll have a lot of people on over the coming years talking about that game, because that'll be an epic game. There's no question. So 48-47 is what we're going with, the Horned Frogs beating the Texas Longhorns. That's going to do it for this week's edition of Frogs Today, the Friday edition, if you will, Football Intensive Friday. Don't forget, we got all the coverage that you'll need of this matchup coming up tomorrow, frogstoday.com. That's your site to check all of that out. We want you to share, like, comment, and, of course, subscribe to both frogstoday.com and to our YouTube channel. Oh, and by the way, we're on the Frogs Today website. Check out the new merchandise there, too. Yeah, you'll be able to look good with some Frogs Today gear. Check it out at frogstoday.com. For Coach Bowden, Jeff Wilson, I'm Brian Estridge. We'll see you this weekend down in Austin. Frogs and the Longhorns, 6:30 on Saturday. See you later.
Frogs Today is brought to you by the Flying T Club, supporting TCU student athletes, and by Richard's Rainwater. Say hello to the water of tomorrow. Frogs Today is a production of Roxo Media House.
Roxo Media House.